right, welcome back, Last of Us, season 1, episode 2, The Infected. Court, this is Tim, and um, I like this episode a lot. I feel like when we were talking last week, we were saying how when you're watching a show like this or a video game, all the dialogue, the stuff you hear on the radio, like it's all there for a reason. And I feel like this episode really showed that everything that we were seeing and hearing in the last episode was there as foreshadowing, and like you really start to see it as the episode goes on.
Yeah.
It starts off, I guess, in Jakarta 2 days before the last episode. Well, 2 days before the last episode started was just when the outbreak that we see starts back in 2003. And in that first episode, we do hear on the radio, they do mention Jakarta. And later when she goes to get, Sarah goes to get Joel's watch fixed, the woman in the store closes the store down early, and they're clearly Middle Eastern. I don't know if they're from Indonesia, but maybe, they were hearing things that, Sarah hadn't heard yet. But, everything, obviously, Jakarta, ground zero, 2 days before, and we see the military go to pick up the scientists. And it's a very tense scene. Obviously, I guess Indonesia is an area that was under military rule for a long time, so she's nervous getting picked up. But you can kind of tell there's a tension with the military personnel as well. They're nervous. It's not just oh, you're in trouble, we're coming to arrest you type deal. They're being polite to her and everything. And then when they get her to the lab, there's the one scientist that starts telling her what's going on, and he's like, no, let her draw her own conclusions. And to me, that's just a sign of she's told them what's happening and they don't like it, so they're trying to let me get someone else in here. Maybe they'll tell me something different. It'll be better.
Yeah, I really like that. Added a lot of real world to it too. You don't get a lot of that in thin story or plots. But the fact that that happened, that's real. Even if it wasn't as serious as it was, you want to go into that kind of situation with an open mind. You don't want to go in there already thinking, anything. You want them to completely go from scratch and see what they think. Otherwise, if you lead them in a certain direction, they're going to probably agree with that direction. So yeah, I like that a little bit. And like you said, the dynamic between him, you could tell he was not even just nervous. You could tell he was hopeful. He did that was a good job of acting because he didn't say very much, but you could tell that he was hoping that she was there or was going to be able to help them.
Right. I know when she goes into the room to see the body that's been infected or whatever that's on the table, you see the bullet hole in the forehead. If it was me, I'd be like, well, see, that's your problem right there. This bullet hole in her forehead. That's how they die. You can't.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah, I guess I can go back to having my lunch now. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just feel like the fungus is just always so fucking gross. When she cuts into the skin, it's already grown right under the skin, it's taking over the muscles, and then it comes out of the mouth and it's still moving, and she just kind of throws it down and runs out. It's just so gross.
Yeah, that whole thing. The same in the first episode with the lady, the older lady coming out of her. It's a fun, change from the regular zombie. So.
Yeah, and so then the scene basically they confirm how it happens. It was a flower factory only 30 hours earlier. That's crazy, the speed in which that whole thing happened. And at that point it was already too late. And she says when they ask her what to do, and she just says bomb the city. And she's not like, oh, let me and my family get out of here and then bomb the city. She knows what the deal is. She completely understands more than anyone else at that point what's about to happen. And even then, it was already too late.
Yeah, which is scary.
Right. But then, when it's a flower factory, and then you go back to the first episode, and everything that happens between Joel and Sarah, she wakes up and there's no pancake mix. And then they walk outside, and the neighbor's feeding the older lady the biscuits. And then she's the older lady's the one who ends up being infected. Right. And they offer the biscuits to Sarah and Joel, and they turn it down, and Joel says he's on Atkins. And then later afterwards, she goes back to the house and the old lady's baking cookies, but they're oatmeal raisins, so she doesn't want any. She likes chocolate chip. And Joel promises to bring a cake home, but he never brings the cake home, so they don't eat the cake. It's man, these people survived merely off luck. They had no clue And everything you see throughout the day, basically between them, is them not eating anything with flour in it.
Yeah, I didn't even catch all that. I didn't go back in my mind to the first one, but I like that too because I definitely was in my. I don't know. I didn't catch that, so I was still thinking that the flour at that factory started it, but that then it spread through the biting.
Oh no, that apparently like Jakarta has like I think the biggest flour factory in the world. And I watched episode 1 after I watched episode 2. Like I'd already seen it, and I went back and rewatched it, and that's when I was like noticing all these things. I was like, oh man, like they're really going like hard. Like pretty much all the dialogue, everything that's happening between like Sarah and Joel is like them not eating anything that has flour in it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So then we back to where the last episode ends. Basically the next morning after Joel and Tess find out that Ellie's been bitten. And I feel like already you're seeing less tension with Ellie and Tess because if we go back to the last episode, when that young boy comes in the federal, we see the poster and it says how long you have based on where you're bitten. And she was bitten on the arm. So like that's 6 to 8 hours. And Tess is like, well, it's been all night and she's fine. And she already had that bite on her. So like, there has to be something to this.
Well, not that, but she is definitely, she's got hope in her, whereas Joel does not. Yes. That's a big difference too. I mean, that's something that you can see it immediately. Like she wants to believe, and he refuses to believe.
Which is a sign of someone who's gotten their hopes up before and just not gonna go through it again.
Yeah.
You can only. I mean, I feel like that's the way it would happen. Like if something like this happened, there would be so many things that would happen to get your hopes up before anything that actually came along that could save you actually happened. I feel like the first time you got your hopes up, that would not be, I mean, what are the odds? Like we're getting out of this so quickly.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing about the episode that I appreciated was how well they used like the practical effects against the green screen. Like when you have like that whole background of like Boston with the buildings like being knocked over and everything like that, obviously you're not going to build a set like that. And I feel like on a lesser network or with less money behind it, that could tend to look real cheap. Like if you're watching this on like the Sci-Fi Channel, if that's even still a thing, I guess they're just doing Sharknado movies now. But you see like those things where it's like this is clearly a green screen, but you don't really think about it. Like I thought the sets looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the video game's old, and I haven't played it in a long time. And I think it did a good job of making it feel real because it reminded me a lot of that, where it was like,
oh yeah,
I don't know. But again, the video game, it doesn't need to look as real. I think they did a good job, and it did look. I don't know. At first, it looked a little too damaged, but then they pretty quickly started showing you like explosion holes, and showing you that it's not like the 20 years didn't do that to these buildings,
right.
I think they even talk about it where they say something about they had to bomb them first. I can't remember what they said, but because at first I was like, this is a little bit much, but then they talk about how they walk through like a giant pit that was a crater from a explosion. So I mean, it makes a lot more sense.
Right, and I mean that opening scene in Jakarta, I'm pretty sure the only word that is in English is the word bomb. It's like is the word bomb the same in both languages? Because when he asks her at the end, what do we need to do? She says bomb, like bomb the city. It's like, well, I guess that's what they went with. Let's bomb all these major cities. I don't know exactly why that would be the best idea, but yeah, I guess it worked.
I mean, my thing is just 100,000 people dead is 100,000 less zombies. You know what I mean? Like if you're thinking,
right.
But yeah, no, I feel like the word bomb, like I didn't notice that, but I feel like there's probably a lot of people in a lot of countries that only know that word because of the English word of it. If it wasn't for us and the bombing that we do,
right?
I don't know if Jakarta falls in that, but
yeah, that would make sense.
That's kind of our word. We
drop some bombs.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me in the first episode when he's meeting with the soldier and giving him the pills, and he's asking him if you're real. It's like, yeah, they came from Atlanta. There's a factory down there. The only two things they make are bullets and drugs. It's like, oh, same old America.
Yeah. Like I think that factory actually exists in Atlanta.
Right? Yeah. It's already there.
Still operating? Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Like that's the only thing that's left. They make the pills and they make the bullets. Right? That's all we need. So I mean, I feel like the episode was a really good episode, but like you don't get a lot of plot basically. They're going across. They end up in the hotel, which is taken pretty much directly from the game.
Yeah,
Um,
that part. Like I remember specifically like parts from the game. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't think Tess is with you at that point. I can't remember, but
I like when she says she can't swim, and he's like, seriously, like the water's like 3.5 feet.
yeah, like well, because at first she's like seriously, and she's like, "What? I grew up in
Right.
went to the school." He's like, and he just like walks into the water.
I mean, I would hate walking in like through swampy ass water.
I mean, we're just like dead bodies have been sitting there, and
Yeah, like I don't know. I guess growing up around swamps is just like, yeah, you don't want to walk through that shit.
no,
I mean, maybe they don't have like the snake problem we would down here.
yeah, no, they're in Boston, so they don't. I mean, they still have snakes, but not like we would.
Right.
But something I thought that I think somewhere in between where we were talking about, they said something I thought was really interesting, and I don't remember it from the games, but I feel like it may have just forgotten. But how like if you can step on a little bit of a spore here, like
Yeah, that part's not in the game.
I didn't think so. I don't remember that from the game. I feel like I would have remembered that.
That part's not in
yeah,
the game. So what they did is they changed it in the game. They would throw the spore bombs, and they didn't want that in the show because they didn't want the actors to have to wear, I think, gas masks the whole time, to where you weren't like, because if that were a thing, you would pretty much always need to be wearing a gas mask if they just throw spores at you. Which I mean, you could have a show with Pedro Pascal where he doesn't show his face and it would still work. Apparently, Disney's proven that.
Yeah.
But I can understand why they didn't want that, and I think that makes it even better this way because like now you can kill one of the infected. And it doesn't necessarily matter. Like now you're screwed. Like now you got a fucking 10,000 more infected coming for you. You got to get out of there. With most zombies,
it changes things. It makes everything more linked. Like the whole like when you see them, like they're not dead.
right?
I say they're not dead. They're not, motionless, but they also can't move. Like move. They're like looking at you and stuff, but they're still part of it. Like there's still things like mushrooms growing out of their head and stuff. Like it's just it adds to that whole kind of one mind trying to take over everything, which is the way I feel like fungus is.
And it would make it that they'd be harder to compete with because like they're interconnected. I mean, I feel like humanity, like that's the one thing that we really have going for us right now is the fact that how connected we are, but like not through like our own bodies, like it's all internet, it's all wires, it's phones and radios and stuff like that. Like you knock out all of our communication devices, that now we're pretty screwed. Like them, like they have that as built into what they are. And yeah, I think that's a good change for the show from the game. I mean, I don't know if it would necessarily make the game better, but I think it definitely makes the show better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get through the hotel, then they're in the Civil War museum in Boston. I just think it's cool how like everything's like completely overgrown, like this. Like yeah, fuck your society, fuck all your artifacts. Like this is done, and that's a cool scene because going in there's gonna be an infected. Like the tension is so high. It's like this episode's been going on for too long. We haven't come across any of them yet. Like there's definitely gonna be an infected when they get inside of this Civil War museum, and I mean it looks so fucking crazy. Like the makeup job they did on it, which is like that's so disgusting and creepy looking.
Well, yeah, well, that's something like again from the game. I feel like they just things growing into things like getting grown and stuck to a wall,
right?
Or like just being so heavy because your head's grown so much you can't even like lift your head and stuff. Like it's just it's like different. It's I don't know. It's creepy. It's creepy in its own way. It takes zombies and then adds something to it. But yeah, no, that was definitely more like a horror scene. The last maybe not the last 10 minutes, but like maybe like 10 minutes in there, definitely felt more like watching a horror movie.
You know what it kind of reminded me of loosely? The raptor scene in the original Jurassic Park.
I can see that. Like,
from it.
Yeah, well, the whole like superior, but with like inferior intelligence, where you can trick them. Like their brains can do certain things, but they can't do other things.
Right.
And that's something we're kind of learning right now in the series too. Like because that was the first time they told us that you could shine a flashlight in their eyes and they don't even notice. That was news to us.
Yeah, it's crazy though because the whole echolocation thing doesn't really make sense to me because humans don't already have that ability. So like, why would a fungus taking over your brain give you like echolocating ability?
Well, I again, I don't think that was in the game, but even if either way, I feel like that's something where like they didn't seem like they were great at it, so it almost works. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I don't. I didn't really understand that part of it. Like, and I don't. Again, I wish I could remember the game. Like,
Well, that's why they
I
call them
don't remember being
clickers
able to just
because they
walk
click like
around.
that in the game.
What's up?
I said that's why they call them clickers because they click like that in the game. So I guess like they click and like they can hear the sound waves and like no, but it, I don't want to have echolocation. It works so much better than that.
Yeah.
Like a whale can echolocate over like hundreds of miles.
Well, the
Like,
bats can do it to like the opposite, like to the centimeter, and catch a mosquito out of the air.
right. Like these kids are in the same room as you, and like he doesn't really know where you are. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's the very early stages of like developing echolocation because they're not good at it. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
I mean that
interesting.
was that.
It's interesting in general, like thinking because if you think about the way that fungus actually works on ants, like I don't know, like just I mean I don't have like a conclusion. I just was thinking about it, but just like the way that it works, like it doesn't. Like I say, I mean, it doesn't know people can or can't echolocate. It doesn't know what any of that means. It's just trying to survive. It's doing everything it can with what it has. And for some
Right.
reason, the eyes don't seem to work. But the eyes were looking at her. At one point, when the one that was laying on the ground, and she's at episode 3,
That's episode 3, yeah.
definitely saw one looking though. You know, I feel like their eyes
No, but
work. But
that
does that
one
not?
wasn't as advanced as the clicker because in that episode it only has one eye. The other eye you see like the fungus is growing out. So
Yeah.
like eventually the fungus basically like grows out and you don't have any eyes. So like without any eyes, you're
So I guess there's a stage before clickers where they can still see you.
yeah.
That makes sense because like in the first episode, like everybody, like the grandma.
Yeah, that's the first stage, and then like there's a stage in between that and the clicker.
And then do you know about the next stage? Has that happened yet?
I think those are the bloaters, but we haven't seen any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we get that scene, and I feel like if you played the game, eventually Tess gets infected. I think even people who hadn't played the game could realize that Tess was acting a little weird at that point. And going back to the previous episode, that same poster, if you get bit on the neck or the shoulder area, you got 5 to 15 minutes, I think they said, before you start turning. So she knows the time is ticking. She's like walking faster, trying to get to where they're going. And I feel like Joel is so caught up on Ellie because Ellie got bit too that he's not even noticing what's going on with Tess.
Yeah.
Like
he definitely should have caught that, I feel like. But
what's up?
Like he should have caught that, but I think one of the reasons that I was thrown off personally, because I realized it before it was revealed, but not immediately, her having the ankle injury kind of threw it off because like you think that might be what it is, and then it's not that. And right. Like, okay, good. Her ankle's fine. You know what I mean? And like she wouldn't even let him help. She like took the tape out of his hands and like fixed it herself, which is I got bit by a zombie 101. I'm gonna bandage my own self up. But then when she ends up, I don't know. I feel like that was the scare for me was that it was her leg. I didn't expect it to be bit on her neck or chest or whatever.
Yeah. And it's interesting how like even when they get to the what was the last place they got? Was it the museum? Well, they were already in the Civil War Museum. The last place they went, I don't remember where it was.
I don't know what that was.
But
it looked like a city hall or something almost. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I think it was like an official building.
But
it's Ellie that like points it out. Ellie's like she's infected. And it's like Joel finally like sees it or whatever. And it's like such a sad moment because like, he wants to say goodbye to her. He wants to kiss her. Like she takes a step towards him. He immediately takes a step back. Like, yo, like, it's like, when someone's infected, like it's over. Like it's a done deal. We got to leave you behind. And, I mean, they gave her a better death than I think she got in the game. The game was fine, but like this was like more heroic, basically.
I mean, I don't say a better death after that kiss.
Yeah, that was pretty fucking gross.
That was terrible. That shouldn't have happened. She had grenades. I'd have just chucked a grenade at him. She threw the grenades on the ground and spilled the grenades and stuff. I'd have had one in my hand or something.
Right. Especially like once you try to flick the lighter a couple times and it doesn't work, I get that grenade as like a backup.
Yeah.
But they just had to increase the dramatic tension there.
Well, they had to use that. I mean, I'm sure they'll use it some more, but that was pretty gross. Like, just like I said, they did it like they showed the old lady when she was eating somebody, she was doing it, but that person was dead, or at least it was too late for them.
Right.
Man, that was a little extra right there. I liked it, but it was hard to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just weird. Like I just feel like everything that has to do with the fucking fungus is just like so disgusting.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's supposed to be off-putting like that. They did a good job with it.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean that's basically the episode at that point. Tess is gone, and you know I feel like Ellie, she's getting a real world understanding of just what it's like to be out here.
yeah. And like I said, they showed they circle back. They showed what I talked about. They mentioned it during the walk, and then they showed it when they got into that building. They stepped on a piece of fungus, and everybody outside woke up. I
Yeah,
thought that was cool. How like they're not just like in most zombies, they're just kind of roaming around or not really. These people, they just lay down. They don't do anything. Like, why would you use your energy to search around when there's little fungus things poking up everywhere that are going to catch it? So just differences that again, you think zombie apocalypse, you already got your plan made up. Now you got to have a new plan because this is different than what we're used to.
I was just not quite sure why the Fedra in the QZ zone doesn't do anything about all those affected that are right outside their fucking borders. Because the more and more to get there, eventually they're going to be able to overrun that QZ zone.
Yeah.
And I have to assume they definitely know about that. So, like, I thought that was weird. Like, why isn't Fedra doing something about this?
Yeah, I wish in general there was a little bit more, and we'll get to that in the next episode review because this kind of rings some of my disappointments with the third episode stem not more from what the third episode was, but from what it wasn't and what we haven't gotten yet, but we're getting instead. And some of what I think we should be getting more of, and not for me, but for again, Kara is a great person, a great example. She's watching it with me. Everything's happening so fast. Like you said, you had to rewatch episode 1 to catch all these little things, and you had to have known the game to know all these things. It's not very simple, or not doesn't need to be simple. It's not very clear yet, and it's not very friendly to the viewer who's not reviewing it and rewatching it and knows the game. And that's important. I think it needs to be like that's something Game of Thrones just out of the gate. You didn't have to know fantasy. You didn't even have to know what sword play was. It was just entertaining. They just gave you a little bit of everything, which compared to that, just because it's HBO. But again, I just feel like they're finding little. I don't know. They're being kind of vague, and I think like it wasn't a big deal to me until when you jump into episode 3, and they instead of teaching you more, completely kind of start over. But that'll be for the next discussion.
All right. Well, we can wrap it up there, I guess. Overall, I thought it was a strong follow up to the first episode. If anything, I say kind of a slow pace, but it's a slow paced game. So I mean, it is what it is. You're not going to have huge set pieces with a ton of action going on. It's kind of a slow, quiet stealth. Those are the things that the game embraces. So I like the episode. I think it's off to a strong start. So with that, we will wrap it up, and then we'll be back for the next one.
Next time.
Like, comment, subscribe, all the normal stuff.